Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I got another review for another young adult or middle grade book for the purposes of my class in grad school. Um, I am reviewing the not so boring Letters of Private Nobody by Matthew Landis. As I said, it is a young adult book, but I would say it's definitely written more in line with middle grade. It is very appropriate for 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, and really any grade above that. But generally, I would say it's probably better for 5th and 6th graders. With this class and with this project, I am charged with reading, I think 4 to 6 young adult novels that I've never read before and giving my thoughts on them and kind of think about how I would maybe teach them. Are they accurate to young adults and how they are portrayed? From what I've noticed as a teacher, and just things like that. I chose this novel because this year in 8th grade, I'm teaching Civil War literature. I read with my 8th grade students Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass and then Red Badge of Courage. And they really enjoyed Frederick Douglass, but they did not enjoy Red Badge of Courage. And in fact, I'll be honest, I didn't really enjoy it as well, teaching it or reading it. It was only, I think, my second time ever reading it. I think I was forced to read it when I was in middle school, and my excitement and enjoyment of the book, or lack thereof, definitely showed. And I think it hurt the class in a way. We were only reading it for 2 weeks, but that 2 weeks was kind of the most painful 2 weeks of my quarter. I do think it's important for a teacher to teach things that they love and enjoy because it makes really the class so much easier to maintain. But I chose this book because it deals with the Civil War, and I thought maybe, let's see if I can bring some enjoyment, bring something a little bit more lighthearted to the class, something a little bit better than Red Badge. But first, what is it about? I kind of stole the synopsis just from the back. I couldn't really think of another way of just giving you a quick rundown for what it is, but it is essentially about a young boy by the name of Oliver Pritchard, or Pritchard, excuse me. He believes that he knows everything there is to know about the Civil War, all the facts, all of the major important battles, all of the major important generals, all the key details. He thinks he knows it all, but he doesn't necessarily know the human side of the war. And he is giving a project by his 7th grade history teacher where he has to do research on a figure from the Civil War and how it impacted him. Uh, Unfortunately for him, it is a group project, and he does not normally work well with people. And he is assigned to work with a character by the name of Ella Barry, who is an outcast, very much like him, uh, but also, unfortunately, unlike him, she is an apparent slacker, and he is worried that her, you know, apathy towards school is going to affect his grade. But he is excited because it is the Civil War. But that excitement is quickly dashed once again when he is assigned to do research on Private Raymond Stone, who, in his words, Oliver's own words, a nobody. He doesn't know anything about this Private Stone at all, and he has to learn about Private Stone and he has to learn about Ella Barry in order to become more of a human. Really, that's what this novel is about, humanizing people, right? Um, so immediately when I, was done reading this book, uh, I thought again about my class. I chose it originally for 8th grade students because of the content that I teach in there. But I would say that this novel is better suited to 5th and 6th grade. It is middle grade all the way through. I'm not saying that 8th graders wouldn't enjoy it, but knowing my current 8th grade class and the situation in there, those students would not enjoy this book. It is very simplistic, and it has very simple language, very easy to understand, which maybe they might enjoy because of Red Badge of Courage, that was part of the issue. Red Badge of Courage is not easy to understand. The language is very archaic. Maybe this would be a nice pairing with it. But I felt like, as I was reading it, these 7th graders seemed more juvenile than 7th graders that I'm used to. Um, and this is a recently published novel. I think it was like 2018. I almost said 16, but 2018 I think is when it was published. And I taught 7th grade for 3 years, and then 6th grade for a year. Now I'm back teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And these 7th graders in the book, they act younger than I would have expected. from an author to portray. Um, and, that's just something that I think wouldn't really sit well with my eighth graders. They wouldn't really feel connected with this story and the problems in the story. But also, because of the main character, Oliver, he is so unlikable. That was one thing that I just found myself really annoyed with this novel, that Oliver is very annoying. I think Ella Berry, she is definitely, in my opinion, a better character. But unfortunately, both Oliver and Ella are underdeveloped. And that's something that I just couldn't really connect myself with the novel either. Because as I was reading it again, I try to think about the classes that I'm currently teaching. Like, for example, in seventh grade, we're reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is also very young, but is required for my school. And we're looking at the characters in that book, and we're filling out charts for them. And I kept thinking, with this story, the novel by Matthew Landis, I couldn't really do that with my kids. There's not, in my opinion, a whole lot that we can fill out about the characters, because they are very underdeveloped and oftentimes seems very rushed and very surface level in terms of like development and characteristics, and really a surface level conflict, if I'm going to speak honestly. This conflict between our two leads felt very like, why is this happening? Why was this the conflict between the two? It felt like the two leads were arguing for the sake of argument, which, hey, might be realistic for middle schoolers, right? Maybe they don't always argue about things that are important or things that make sense. But for me, I couldn't buy into the conflict, and I don't know if my students would buy into it as well. But oh well, it is what it is. Another thing that I did not like at all, and I think really the part that my students would probably hate the most would actually be, and this is a slight spoiler, so if you are at all interested in reading this book, go ahead and pause and come back to this video later. But the romance in this book was very forced. I cannot stand romances where it feels like they only get together or they only explore the romance because they are the two leads. We have a male lead and a female lead, so why not put them together? It felt completely out of nowhere. I didn't feel any chemistry at all. I didn't feel, which I don't want to think about chemistry between middle school students, a little gross, but it just felt like there was no development between the relationship. I think they should have remained friends. I recently read a book, Attack of the Black Rectangles, that did this so much better. The two leads in that story communicated and they came to the agreement, hey, we like each other, but let's remain friends. The Not So Boring Letters of Private Nobe did not do that. I felt like it was just maybe an added detail at the end of the book. Probably an editor who wanted it. I don't know. Maybe to market it as a romance to some degree, but it felt very much out of nowhere, or at least very, I'm going to speak like my students, very much cringe. It was not enjoyable at all for that. Terrible romance, I'm just going to be honest. Did not like it. I really felt like with this story, we needed, again, to develop the characters more. Ella Berry, her part of the novel is very interesting, and it's something I think many of my students will connect to. With her story, she wants to be seen by her parents. She doesn't get attention from her parents or from her classmates, and she acts out because of that. She's a slacker because of that. And she doesn't do her best in school because of her parents. And I think, maybe a lot of my students will connect to that. But unfortunately, we don't really focus on her. We focus on Oliver. And again, I do not like Oliver. He is very unlikable. He is a jerk throughout most of the novel, hard-headed throughout most of the novel, and he whines when he doesn't get his way. Yeah, I think, I probably do have students like Oliver, but do not enjoy reading a story about students like Oliver, maybe. I will say this, not all negative. The themes are great because, again, with Ella, people want to be seen. Kids do want to be seen by their parents. They do want interactions. They don't just want things. They don't want material things. Ella's family is very wealthy and very rich and very successful, but they oftentimes ignore their daughter, right? And they focus on just success with material things. And Ella doesn't feel loved. And I think, those themes are important. Those themes are something that I think kids could discuss and feel connected to. And for students like Oliver, it'd be a great theme to talk about. Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't be too quick or too harsh to judge someone, because he judges Ella, and he does judge Private Raymond Stone. But the themes are great. But just because the themes are great doesn't mean I have to enjoy a book, because this book is kind of ruined by the writing and just the quick pace, the undeveloped characters. It's just all over the place, which is unfortunate. I really wanted to like this book, but I don't. It's not for me. But I am glad I read it because I can eliminate it from my potential books to teach to my 8th graders, and maybe give it to my 5th grade teacher at my school. I think, again, this book might be better for 5th or 6th grade. But yeah, that's all I really got. I think, again, this book, I'm glad I read it just to get more insight into what I like, what I'm looking for as a teacher, and what I want to teach, and maybe what books don't fit that criteria. I want to look into more books about the Civil War, but I think at this point I'm going to look for more historical fiction from the middle grade section. I want to see if there's anything about the Civil War and historical fiction for middle grade and young adult. I tried doing some research, and this book popped up. I don't think it's really historical fiction too much. But yeah, that's all I got. If I were to give it a grade, when I went to rate it, it did get 2 out of 5 stars, which is what the equivalent of maybe a D plus or C minus. That's the grade I would give this book. It wasn't a book for me. But that's all I got. So, if you've ever read this book, please let me know what you thought. If you've read other Matthew Landis books, this was his highest rated novel on Goodreads, which means I probably won't be reading another one of his books. But if I should read another Matthew Landis book or maybe give something else a try, please let me know in the comments. But like, subscribe, do whatever. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.